My name is Cristina Dominguez. I am the executive director, one of the co-founders of Semilla.
How is the farm an agroecology practice and training space in the Chihuahuan Desert, and why is that important?
The framing of agroecology at the farm has two main buckets or umbrellas to oversimplify, and there's agroecology as practice and agroecology as movement. And so as a training ground for practice, to simplify, like production wise, there's all kinds of lessons and examples talking about soil health and improving production. How are you feeding the soil and the plants, pollinator ecology, IPM, and then there's the movement piece, like who's getting to farm, who has access to land, who has access to water, what are like the gender dynamics at play, like really doing power analysis into how the agricultural system exists and how it could exist to feed people. So this farm and the program we offer frames agroecology both as practice and movement. And so how we're building community with one another is just as important as if you know how to germinate the seed. Did you germinate that seed and then take it to like yield a fruit and share it with people in ways that were healing? Or did you do it in this like competitive and extractive way that completely depletes the land that you just grew on, that just nourished you? Circle back to that idea of it's more than symbolic why when you enter the farm, you first enter the Chihuahuan Desert food forest space. Because people understand here, like row crop production, that makes sense to them as a farm, but there's so many like wild intended landscapes. We know that like our indigenous ancestors and continue to like tend landscapes that are not fields of linear production and are abundant. And I think that that's very much why that entryway is less familiar to people, but almost holds even more power than the rest of the farm itself, because you can be standing where you think, and how how the desert gets framed, like it's just the desert, and actually you're standing in a place of abundance, but we've been conditioned to like be blind to that and not see the power in that. And so when you enter this farm, you first enter all Chihuahuan desert species, and that's the beginning of asking like, how is this farm an agroecological training space? This farm is surrounded by practices that are not sustainable, practices that are extractive and kind of negate like the true costs of a certain kind of production. I think the power in the agroecology framing that we very intentionally chose to use is because it's seeing farming as a part of like a natural system, looking at nature for lessons. And when I'm saying nature, I don't mean like people are separate from nature, that we are like a part of a system. And so this place is somewhere to experiment with that question of what does it mean to be growing in the Chihuahuan Desert in this century of climate chaos and water depletion. And so what does that need to look like? And it's a place of experimentation. We've had a number of people that have come to visit or even worked here, and I think saw what we were trying to put in place and then thought, I could do that, but I could do that better. And that's great. That's the point. Like, I think the name La Semilla is very appropriate, though I don't know how appropriate we realized it would be. It's like an excellent metaphor because it incubates like possibilities. So people have come and seen our drip irrigation system, which I'll add that like irrigation, like the expertise we were trying to enlist to even to get the well drilled was a lot of dismissiveness. Like, you can't do that in the desert, when actually there had been like a really successful project at NMSU that was doing that years back, but then it got defunded. So I think it's constantly like pushing back on saying this is possible and even more is possible. And so we've had people see like our drip system, think like we could do that, but do it better, and then go do that. And one of those sites like ends up becoming like a partner farmer mentor site, and that's the point, which also speaks to like collaboration and system, right, versus in a co-creation rather than competition. So the things that we're doing here, I hope that like all the fellows take that and then do it better times 20. We don't have time to wait either. I think the urgency of this work in this place is like, I don't know how to not be invested in it. And I don't, yeah. Man, trying to navigate like the getting the well and showing and continuously being ignored as a small brown woman, like having somebody else have to make calls for me so they would actually be answered, and then meeting people here at the farm and being condescended to, like all of those things are what make farming even more difficult for people that have been disinvested from. And that's all the more reason why this farm matters, and people seeing not just representation, but like beyond representation, right? Like powerfully making like meaningful decisions and creating space for each other in a larger system that's basically dismissive.